Hey everybody, it's Murgle, and today in this one we'll be discussing Old School Runescape, going over many of the features of the game and why it may or may not be a good choice for you. I, for one, have been playing Old School Runescape for many years now, on the side, so I of course am very fond of the game, but that being said, I will try to be as unbiased in my opinions, and hopefully give you a strong idea if the game is worth your time. Anyways, let's just jump right into it. So as the name suggests, it is the old school version of the game originally known as RuneScape. The original game went down a path, making one wrong move after another that eventually drove out most of the active player base. And thus, the developers came to the community and said, would you like to play an older version of the game before most of these updates even happened? The response was an overwhelming yes, and thus Old School RuneScape was created. Now, many of you have probably played RuneScape in your childhood or just younger years and fell out of touch with the game, but I assure you it is even more enjoyable now than it has ever been. Now, the name implies that it is the old school version, but I assure you nothing is really old about it except for maybe the graphics. The game was originally supposed to have 0 updates, but as the community strongly advised they wanted to play the game this way, it didn't mean they wanted to have 0 content added to said game. So the developers set to work, and since that point the game has almost constantly seen growth in the player base and the population. So what is it though that's really appealing about the game? Well, a big point of the game is that for some players it's familiar to them. RuneScape at one point in time could be spoken to pretty much any kid I knew when I was around 12, and people knew exactly what I was talking about. That doesn't mean though that the game is inherently for children, as it might seem, and people look at it that way because of how the game appears when you're seeing it. The graphics are kind of bad. But the vast majority of the player base nowadays is probably in their 20s or older. I have met many players in my time, and I'd say I probably have asked a total of 100 people how old they were. And from my experience, I only really met around 4 people that were 19 or younger. That being said, my own personal experience might differ from someone else's, but I really do believe that the game, especially the way it is played, would be much more appreciated by an older player base than a younger one. So that being said, a lot of the players are probably older. This comes from the fact that the game is really about making self-goals and accomplishing those goals. The game offers very little instant gratification when it comes to skilling. Everything feels very hard-earned when you accomplish it, especially when it comes to skilling. All skills in the game range from levels 1 to 99. However, the experience gained with each level requires a vast amount more as you go on. A common inside joke amongst players in the RuneScape community is that 92 is half of 99. Because the way experience is staggered, you're only halfway to the maximum in a skill once you've reached level 92 in that skill. Pretty crazy to think about it, right? Especially when some skills can take a daunting amount of time to reach 99 in. A slower skill, such as runecrafting for example, might take you anywhere between 200 to 300 hours just for that skill to reach 99. And that's only one of the skills. You have a bunch to choose from. But that is a big thing for the game that people enjoy. It might feel tough at times when you're training, but when you really hit a big goal for yourself, you feel very, very good about yourself once you've done it. And while skills are capped at 99 in terms of level, the experience you can gain in a skill has a cap of 200 million experience, which is roughly 15.5 times longer to reach than it takes you to get to 99 in that skill. But some people might just enjoy training that skill and see that as their end goal. That's one of the joys of the game, because you are completely in control of what you like or what you do not want to do when it comes to play the game. On top of that, there's a very large amount of ways to train almost any of the skills. Some more exciting and requiring higher effort, and others very low maintenance and can be done with a very leisurely style of gameplay. The same goes for profitability in the game. The market is almost entirely player driven, and many skills are trained completely with items you can buy or sell, or either make your own money and then spend them to get your own skilling done, etc., etc. You can choose to do it really slowly and make high amounts of profit, or spend all your gold and get experience at a very fast rate. You can take your journey however you please. Maybe you spend all your time training combat, maybe you spend all your time farming, or maybe you do farming in the middle of doing your combat. It's up to you. The joy is no one makes that decision of how you play except for you. And just as the choice in the game goes, you can also choose to up the ante of your gameplay further by picking one of the 4 different game modes as you're starting off. So first off, there's just a simple normal account. That's the game mode that everybody is by default. You're just a normal account. You can do everything in the game. You can interact with players. Nothing changes. It's just a normal account. Or, if you choose to pick one of the 3 Ironman styles available to the game, first is the normal Ironman account. This means the account will be indicated by a gray helmet in the chat box when this player speaks. An Ironman account is an account which cannot trade with any other players and has pretty much the restriction of a lot of things. An Ironman is required to forge their entire journey on their own. They have to collect everything in the game by themselves, completely alone. Now, they aren't alone in the game. They're still sharing the game with everybody else, but everything has to be done by them for them. The exception to this rule are raids, which is a group-based content which allows Ironmen to join with other players to complete that content, but that is the only exception to that rule. Now, it definitely brings a whole level more of difficulty to the content in the game. You can push it even further and become what's called a hardcore Ironman when you start playing if you choose. This means you have 1 life in the game. When your character inevitably dies, you will be reverted to a regular Ironman. So you won't lose the account. It's not like the account vanishes and all your hard work is gone. You'll simply be changed into a regular Ironman. This adds a lot of challenge to the game, seeing as you can lose your hardcore status during any dangerous content. The true downside to this mode is that while Jagex servers are mostly stable, your status is risked at any point in time that they become iffy. So if the server goes down and you lose connection for just a few seconds, that could be it, and your status is gone. All that hard work you've saved up and tried to do, gone from a silly little disconnection. It definitely adds challenge, but the true and most challenging mode that is available is called the Ultimate Ironman. It shares all the same restrictions as the normal Ironman, but then also limits your entire account to being restricted to what you can fit in your character's inventory, pretty much. You do not have access to the bank of the game, which is 816 slots of things that you may use. It is unbelievably challenging to play this mode, and I would not recommend it for beginners. However, I am sharing these 3 options, as you will be required to talk to some NPCs upon leaving Tutorial Island. Should you choose that you would like to become one of these types of accounts, the decision must be made while you are on Tutorial Island. If you do not choose that, your account will default to a normal account. If you do choose that you would like to be one of these, but then later regret your decision, and you said, oh, I just want to play a normal account, you can always go to the NPCs located outside of Lumbridge Castle, which is the place you'll spawn in right when you start playing the game, and say, hey, I don't want to be an Ironman account. And the NPCs will queue you up, and it'll take a week, and if you change your mind during that week and say, oh, never mind, I actually want to stay on Ironman, you can make all these decisions then. So, that's what happens, and if you want to play these modes, I highly recommend playing Ironman. It's a lot of fun, but if you want to play a mode where you can just interact with everybody, just simply be a normal account. You'll have a blast too. The game can be appreciated in many different ways across many different types of accounts. Now obviously skilling in the game is fun, but there's many more features to the game. One of the best things, I believe, are the Runescape quests. When it comes to completing a quest in Runescape, it's vastly different than most of the MMO style quests. The quests in Runescape are very in-depth when it comes to lore-driven style. So, they have you travel to much of the continent completing various tasks. Some of these quests can take several hours to complete, and some also require very high requirements before you can even start doing the quest. The dialogue and story behind each of the quests is also something very noteworthy. The devs who write the story put in very high amounts of effort when it comes to making a huge immersive story. They often add very silly jokes that can be quite hilarious at times. They have a lot of fun when it comes to making the quest dialogue, and there's really a lot of effort put into it. The biggest downside to questing is that quests are very limited, and only a few new ones will be added each year. This again falls back on the fact that each quest is very immersive when it's added, so it's not as simple as your generic MMO quest that says go collect 10 of X. Typically there's riddles, puzzles, strong boss fights, and tons of excitement to be seen. If you're watching this and you do end up trying RuneScape, I will tell you that one of the best joys in old school RuneScape is being part of the community attempting a new, extremely challenging quest on the day of its release. It is very exciting, there's tons of fun to be had, and it's a roller coaster of fun and thrills, so would highly recommend if you do choose to play. If you're still watching this and this seems appealing to you, then trust me, I have more great stuff to share. The game is entirely community driven, so when the developers wish to add something to the game, it has to be voted in by the community with a 75% majority, or it simply won't be added. And to top it off, if something doesn't pass but the developers hear the community has a common theme as to why it didn't pass, they will do their best to alter the proposed content and change it around. They re-poll it and see if it's appealing in its new set of rules or whatever they choose to add, and if it is, then it'll pass the second time around. As far as developers go when it comes to caring about the game, most of the old school RuneScape developers really do seem extremely caring about what they add and what they create. Most of them even have accounts which they play on actively as part of the game. Lastly, before we cover some of the cons of the game, there's one more major plus that really brought many players back, as well as might be something that is truly appealing to you too. Old School RuneScape is not just available on PC, it is also available on Android and iPhone from the respective app stores. Simply type in Old School RuneScape. Now, the game will require an internet connection, so it will use your mobile data to be played. However, it has been optimized very well. It doesn't drain that much. Honestly, it drains a very small amount. And it can be a very useful tool, as well as an enjoyable handheld game for most players. The real glory of mobile is the fact that it's the exact same account you'd be playing if you were sitting at a computer, for example. They are not separate games, it's just a different way for you to play on your same account, on the go, if you please. This really benefits a lot of the skills in game, as sometimes you rarely have to click for a very long period. So you may have your little lunch break at work, and you want to train some fishing while you're at it in the game. It's relatively easy to jump right into it and get some done, and other things, though, that are kind of difficult, I wouldn't recommend on mobile. It can be very hard at times to click on the screen. It's very small, and it is just simply difficult to do high-intensive and high-focus stuff when it comes to using mobile. But trust me, mobile is beautiful for some features in the game, really pairs up well, and it's an awesome way for you to play on the go when you're not at your computer. Now to finish off, we can't have all butterflies and roses. We do have to discuss a few of the major cons about old school RuneScape. Number one, and most importantly, a lot of people in the game are very toxic and will try to scam you out of your valuables. The reason being is the old school RuneScape gold has a pretty high IRL monetary value. It is obviously illegal by the game rules to sell the gold, but this rule gets ignored quite frequently. In fact, many of the Venezuelans who are suffering right now tend to play the game because they can make $2 to $3 a day selling the gold, which is more than their daily wages if they took an actual job there. Pretty sad if you think about it. So, a huge thing, if something is there and someone is trying to get you to do something that sounds too good to be true, or they're trying to do anything fishy, simply don't do it. Commonly it'll be things like, I will double your gold if you give me some first, or drop your items then trade me and I'll give you gold, or they simply run up and say, hey, give me an item, I'm doing something special for someone. It may sound silly, and you'd think it would be hard to fall for these things, but it happens pretty frequently. The same goes for scams outside of the game. Never click on a link or any website other than RuneScape when you're trying to enter your account details. A lot of times on Twitch, many of the popular streamers for the game will have fake accounts view-botted, made of them claiming they're quitting the game and having a huge drop party, which implies that they're going to drop lots of really expensive items before they go away. And there will be typically a link for you to log in and check why they are quitting. These are fake streams, though, that are trying to get you to trick yourself into giving them your account details. The same goes with Facebooks, so there will be several Facebook posts about like double experience weekend. Sign up to join in. Old School RuneScape has never had a double experience weekend and never plans to. So be careful with your account. I would make an entirely new email which has no connection to anything when you're deciding to play this game. And the same thing goes, I would put two-factor authentication on that email. Pretty much try and secure yourself as much as you viably can. You don't want to get your account hacked. You can lose immense amounts of progress when that happens, and it feels horrible when it happens. So do your best to try and secure your account, because the thing is, the customer support for Jagex is very poor. If you lose your stuff, it's on your own fault. They won't refund you any of your stuff, so you will be left high and dry without any of your stuff, and it can feel very, very bad. So do everything in your power to make sure you protect your own account. Overall, though, if you can get past the fact that each week around the time the game updates, you might need to read the news in case something insane has happened, or the fact that a lot of people in the game might be trying to steal your items for their own personal gain, then Old School RuneScape is a beautiful gem of a game that you really should give a try. I hope this was informative. I really hope you got something useful out of this video. If you decide to give Old School RuneScape a try after watching this, then feel free to message me in the game. I will be streaming very soon, and I'll put the stream in the description. A large majority of the streams that are going to be around right now will be revolved around this game, because this is what I'm playing a lot of, but I will be trying Final Fantasy XIV soon, and then I'm going to make a video similar to this about Final Fantasy XIV. So if maybe you're on the fence and you want to see more gameplay about this game, feel free to tune in, ask me any questions you feel. I'm pretty knowledgeable about the game. I've completed a lot of stuff in it, so feel free to ask absolutely anything you need. Thank you all for watching. Leave your comments down below what you thought. Maybe you're interested, maybe you tried it. Let me know. I want to hear. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.